following is a local resident producer's program. The program content is the sole responsibility of the producer and does not necessarily reflect the views or policies of CATV2, Oshkosh Community Media Services, the City of Oshkosh, or Time Warner Cable.
Sure. Be terrible. What moment is what?
Hi everyone, welcome to Oshkosh. Cheryl Hentz here along with Dan Rylance, and we're very pleased, as we usually are after an election, not just because it's over, but because of our guest. We're joined tonight by Jim Simmons. He's a political science professor from the University of Wisconsin-Oshkosh. We're going to be talking about the election results from April 6th and talking about, you know, how the results came in and what it means, really. So anyway, welcome
Jim.
Thanks for being here.
He's got his
always a good time.
He's got his numbers right there.
He's got them.
Yeah.
I've got some numbers.
Okay.
I hope we all have the
Hope
same
we have
numbers.
the same numbers.
Yeah. So anyway, there were a number of different races, but let's talk about the Oshkosh Common Council race first. Three faces that are going to be there, new faces for two people. One, Burke Towers returning. Dennis McHugh and Harold Buchholz are not seeking re-election or election in the case of Mr. Buchholz. So two new faces for sure. What do you make of that race?
It's going to change the makeup of the council dramatically. I mean, I think Mr. Cummings and Mr. Herman were more of the establishment candidates. I think that that means that at least temporarily, the life of the city manager is going to be a little more comfortable. Probably fewer accusations of micromanagement, and I would imagine that many of the initiatives that city staff put forward will find a friendlier council.
Okay. Were you surprised at all by any of the returns? I mean, it came in pretty much like it did in the primary.
The primary predicted the final. There wasn't much change. There was a campaign, but the turnout went from about a little under 11% to just under 16%. And I think that normally if you find people who you would consider anti-establishment or people who represent taxpayer alliance, you know, community, middle class interest, it takes a turnout about 25 to 30%, and oftentimes another race that draws people out. The election of the mayor, even if it's a titular mayor, is always a bigger turnout race, and
school referendum issues.
School referendum issues that probably would have had a major impact upon the school board election if that had happened. If you have statewide offices that people care about, or a statewide referendum, that matters.
Were you surprised at all that you know, Brian Peschel, he did serve some years back. He ran again unsuccessfully. I think it was 2 years ago, wasn't it? Yeah. And then he made another stab at it this time around. He didn't make it again. Any surprise there that he didn't, given the name recognition?
This is one of those places where you can't claim name recognition, you know, determine the outcome, because Steve Herman was not a household name either.
Right.
And money didn't matter because it was a fairly low expenditure race, and you didn't see a one-to-one relationship between spending and votes. If you did, you know, some of the candidates were spending more than $1 a vote on their races. I think that when Brian was elected, there was a very critical local issue about land use. I mean, what you could do with your own property, and there was a constitutional amendment on the ballot over hunting and fishing. And
oh, that's right, there was, yeah.
And I think Brian benefited from that.
And they threw a lot of incumbents out in that race.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, he tossed out John Delantonia,
right.
basically, with his getting elected.
Yeah. So I think that this was a fairly typical race. Those who are more or less supportive of initiatives aimed at growth, development, and so on. They keep talking about business-like governments moving the city forward, and I think that means more support on the council for expensive initiatives in terms of local development and less resistance to TIF financing and that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. One thing we were talking about just before we started taping was, you know, Ron Hardy did not do so well, and he tried something very unique, though, that he had on his own blog, mainstreet.com or .blogspot. I'm not even sure what it is offhand. But anyway, what he did for people who didn't see it is he pretended like he was a TV reporter, basically, and he made a little mic flag that said, you know, vote April 6th, and then they had questions. They'd post one question at a time on the screen, and then they would cut away to him, and he would answer the question. It was very clever, very unique, but as you were saying, it didn't reach the audience that went out and voted.
The audience for local elections, like county board, town board, schools, villages, city council, tends to be an older voter. I mean, you know, the GI generation or older. And, you know, social networking doesn't connect with those voters. They don't Twitter, they don't Facebook. They get their information from more traditional sources, the evening news or the newspaper. And,
or programs like this.
Or programs like this.
Or the candidates' forums.
Exactly, the candidates' forums or what have you. You know, so if this were a presidential election, and you were looking at trying to attract the 18 to, let's say, 29-year-old voter, that's fairly effective. But what you really need to do in elections like this one are, you know, radio, you know, catching people when they're coming to and from work, knocking on the door. And that's really most effective with any kind of voter, but if you ask people for their vote, that's probably the most effective way of doing it.
Okay.
A couple issues. Do you think this election solidifies the city manager council form of government for at least the foreseeable future?
Oh, temporarily.
Temporarily?
Temporarily, and I say that because if you look around the state, particularly if you look at areas where you're going to expect the Tea Party to be fairly strong, around, let's say, the suburbs of Milwaukee, and in some of the smaller cities and towns in the area, there was something of an anti-incumbent mood. There were a number of incumbent mayors defeated. Now, the incumbent couldn't be the form of government as much as it can be an individual. And I'm betting, well, I'm almost certain that whatever the form of government, whoever holds office, whether it's a Democrat or Republican, if the economy doesn't recover soon, if we're still seeing 9–10% unemployment, if the housing market continues to be down, the stock market may be up, but that doesn't affect most of us, at least not me anyway.
Nor me. Not much.
You know, it's really going to be very difficult times, and the school board, there may be some euphoria that the outsiders, so-called, came in, but really the outsiders are probably the candidates who are perceived as being most friendly to teachers, to schools, you know, who, unlike Becker, weren't making claims that they were going to cut, you know, positions and salaries and draw back, and perhaps were open to closing schools and changing school boundaries. These candidates came in talking about creative thinking. They're going to do a variety of things, which frankly, I don't think they're going to be able to do.
Yeah, you kind of skipped my question on the city manager thing.
Yeah.
Don't you think it's stronger? I mean, 2 or 4 years ago,
right now,
there were candidates that were running against it.
I think right now. But
okay.
And my point, though, was that given the circumstances, if the current council, which now has a majority that is favorable to that form, if they have to make really tough decisions, if the city continues to have problems. I mean, and you know, national issues can become local issues when you have to make decisions over taxes, over over property and so on. If that happens, then, you know.
Okay, one other thesis.
Sure.
This is really a Chamber of Commerce dream team that was elected Tuesday. You kind of hit that a little bit about being pro-development, but this is really a pro-economic development group that was elected Tuesday.
Yeah, I think that, you know, much of the campaign was not what you saw, where with yard signs and leaflets and, you know, the debates, you know, aired by the League of Women Voters and reported in the local newspaper. Much of it was word of mouth. Much of it had to do with people in the Rotaries, the Chamber of Commerce, the local social clubs, people who are connected, some of the more affluent neighborhoods, saying, well, he looks like our candidate, or, you know, my neighbor said that he's the one I ought to be voting for.
Yeah.
And that's where the campaign was won.
Do you think the influence of Councilmember Palmieri has been weakened with the election of these three people?
Well, in terms of you know, having a majority where you can shape policy, sure. But I think Tony has generally been more effective as a critic of government than someone who comes up with innovative strategies for shifting government. I would have expected that both Peschel and Palmieri would have proposed a number of green initiatives. I mean, after all, the Green Party claims them as their
Yeah, and Hardy was sort of a sustainability candidate.
the same thing,
Yes.
even more so.
Yes.
I mean, at least, and Ron, more than they, had credible proposals. I mean, he was a very issue-oriented candidate. So it weakens Tony to an extent, but again, he has a soapbox, and he's always been a critic of government, and that hasn't really changed very much. It means that he may not always get a second, but he'll always be in a position to state his position in a very public way.
Yeah,
You know what was interesting about this race? Just purely coincidental. I guess in order to win, maybe you needed to be named Steve. We have two Steves now on the city council who were elected, and two Steves on the school board. And so that leads us into the school board. And you had mentioned it before. Of course, Dan Becker was the only incumbent who ran, and he got tossed out. Steve Dito, Steve Eliasson, and Carl Lowenstein are the three new faces that'll be coming on the school board in a few weeks. What kind of a message do you think that this sends to other incumbents on the school board who are coming up for election in the next year or two?
Well, the next year or two is a long time away. I think that this is not a good time to be elected to anything.
Yeah.
You know, when the economy is expanding, when tax dollars are rolling in, even then you're going to take criticism. But in a time of retrenchment where you have to make difficult decisions that affect, you know, your neighborhood school, you know, the neighborhood district, laying off which teachers, negotiating benefits, and you propose a number of creative things that you discover you really can't do because it runs up against union contracts or state law, or opposition from, you know, other parents groups who don't like you either, and so you've seen incumbents who were very supportive of the school administration, who were friendly to neighborhood schools, were teacher friendly, were willing to allow creative curricular changes. They became unpopular too.
Well, and two of them were voted off last year.
Yes,
Exactly.
right.
But Becker was never
Part of
in
that
that group, and now he's been tossed out. Do you think that that signals that people are just fed up with a school board that has been very slow to act and react to a lot of things that it's dealing with?
Well, whether the school board is seen as fiscally conservative or liberal, it's very difficult for any of them to act because, you know, you go through a planning process, you meet with people, you have focus groups, you do a variety of things, you work on plans, you bring out the plans, and you discover that, you know, there are a lot of groups out there that really don't like that plan any more than they like the previous proposals. And they really don't like you either. They had high expectations when you were elected, and you've disappointed them.
Well, I think people are disappointed with the school board overall, just because, you know, a 10-year plan that hasn't really materialized. They still don't know what schools they're going to close, what they're going to do. They just don't seem to know.
And if you think about it too, nationwide, you have that sentiment where if you look at public opinion surveys of any level of government, they're at an extremely low point, especially Congress, but the president is under 50%, Congress is below water, the governor is about 33%, the Congress, neither political party is especially popular. No one likes the Democrats, but they like the Republicans even less. This is really not a good time for incumbents. And if you look at even the private sector, does anyone like bankers or, you know, investment? You look at the professions too, and you see that almost every profession has slid in terms of public perception and satisfaction with them. So.
When the new school board is seated end of this month, it's the first time since 1981 that there will not be a woman on board. Do you think that's significant?
You know, actually I do. And you know, Wisconsin is a state that, well, women got to vote relatively early, and they weren't allowed to vote in all elections, but they were allowed to vote in schools because the assumption was that, you know, as parents and of their concern for education and children, that they would be more effective voters than men. Yep. And frankly, I think women on the school board is extremely important. I mean, most of the teachers in the public schools are women. Many of the administrators, superintendents, top-level officials, you see women in top-level administrative posts in schools, in school districts, more than you do in almost any other level of government, and then you have an all-male council.
And when you watch the school board meetings and the public forums, there were so many articulate and informed women that were really knowledgeable about school issues, but not one of them ran for school board.
Frankly, women as organizers, community organizers, grassroots advocates are a lot better than men. I mean, they're more effective. That doesn't lead to holding office in most cases, but it does, I think, lead to raising the visibility of issues, raising contentions, bringing information to the table that wouldn't be there otherwise.
I want to go back just for a second, Jim, to the incumbents, and this being the second year that school board incumbents were tossed out. You know, obviously, there's a lot, if you read the blogs and you listen to people on the street, there are a lot of people unhappy with the school district and what it's been doing or not doing, as the case may be in some situations. So if the incumbents in future years are looking at maybe running for re-election and truly being incumbents then in the next couple of years, do you think that they're maybe going to be a little bit safer if this now newly seated school board in a couple of weeks moves forward in a progressive way and gets some things done?
Well, getting things done, yes. I mean, one of the things that makes people angry is that it didn't seem like the school board could take an action on anything, no matter what direction it was, progressive or regressive.
And I think that's why people are so frustrated.
Yeah, and what it means to be progressive is in the eye of the beholder.
Right.
You know, clearly closing down my school is seen as regressive, no matter which school it is, or laying off this or that teacher. All those things are perceived differently depending upon who you are. But clearly, I think for some time now, the school board is just seen as being incapable of accomplishing anything. Something is proposed, people show up in mass, and the school district backs down. They really can't make a choice.
They back down all the time. It doesn't matter what the plan is, what the group is that comes forward.
Doesn't matter.
If there's a lot of opposition,
they step back. And it's kind of interesting because the school board is not a stepping stone for higher office, and it's not a paid position. So it isn't that the incumbents are worried about losing a job as a professional politician, because they're not. But they're almost more intimidated than our professionals in the legislature in that way, or Congress.
Yeah.
Anything else on the school board?
Well, I think the dynamics of the school board will be interesting to watch because the president of the board, Ben Schneider, number 2, dominates every meeting. If you put a clock on him as presiding officer, he probably talks 80% of the time. He asks for opinion from another board member, and if no board member responds in 30 seconds or less, he launches into a 10-minute answer to what he started. And he does this repeatedly all night long. So for the board to move away from him dominating, there's going to be some new faces that have got to answer those questions within 15 or 20 seconds, or he's just going to have the same monologue that he's been having for the same last year.
But dominating in the sense that nothing can be accomplished. I mean, it's not dominating in a productive way.
No, in fact, it's negative on most of his comments.
If dominating means that you've created a gridlock, that you're just simply saying no to anything that might be proposed, or that you initially say yes and then you change your mind later when there's a prospect that what it is you agree to might actually happen, then that's dominating. But it's not dominating in the sense that he's set the direction of the board either in a conservative or liberal direction.
Well, watch a couple school board meetings and you'll get a sense of just how dominant he is.
Now, we were talking about this the other day. I don't know if they change, if they will elect a new do you know offhand, will they elect a new president to the board with this incoming school board?
If they can, they will.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I mean, he doesn't hold that position for his term.
Clearly this last election, there were a lot of differences between the 3 school board candidates who were elected. But one of the things they were agreed upon, it was anybody but Becker.
It's kind of what the voters thought too.
I think so, yeah. He ran consistently 4th all night. I mean, it was never made that move in any different place. Yeah.
Well, and you know, some of the bloggers are blaming the teachers union for that, saying, well, they came forward and voted en masse again. Do you share that opinion that it's the teachers union responsible for his demise?
Well, the teachers, as I indicated, are a major portion of the electorate in a turnout of 16%. But so are parents, you know, and parents were mobilized. They were dissatisfied with what was happening in schools. They're looking at if their school isn't threatened with a closure, they are looking at layoffs of teachers. They're looking at programs that will be dismissed. They're looking at a school district or board members who seem to be critical of the educational system or even anti-education. And so if you're a parent and you have kids in school, you're concerned, you're engaged, you turned out.
I think if we did an analysis of how many teachers in the Oshkosh School District don't live in Oshkosh, you'd come up with a pretty high percentage.
That's why I'm thinking. But many of the custodians, many of the people, not just the teachers, the people who work for the staff who work for the school, they do live here.
They do.
But I think Dan Becker has always been sort of a friend of the custodial staff, if you will. It seems to be the teachers that he was always kind of beating up on, which I don't think his hypocrisy helped him a whole lot either, given the fact that his wife is a teacher, as was pointed out when he was actually here. And his negativity. You know, I think the majority of the reason why he probably lost was just he's part of that school board that has a negative attitude.
But those are also the reasons why he won in the past. It's not as
Which is weird because he keeps going back and forth, you know?
Again, it has to do with the circumstances.
Yeah. All right. The judicial race for Branch 5, Jorgensen and Jelinski. What do you make there?
Well, again, I think that Jorgensen was a safer choice. I think that with some people, Jelinski made points for outing former prosecutor Paulus, but at the same time, I think that there was a lot of support for former prosecutor. I think that among those people who are law and order and who are generally supportive of the local legal establishment, Jorgensen was a very nice guy. He had fewer rough edges than.
Strong association with the Republican Party,
exactly.
With veterans organizations.
Right. Yeah, he was a former JAG attorney. He had a relatively broad array of experience. He was perceived as a fairly effective prosecutor. I don't think that Jelinski was perceived as not effective. I think he's fairly charismatic. But again, another establishment win, I would think.
Okay.
And again, it followed the primary. I mean, Jorgensen was
Absolutely.
way ahead in the primary, ended up way ahead on Tuesday.
Exactly.
Oh, I do want to go back to the school board for just a minute.
She's
John Daggett, you know, this guy is a perennial candidate. I think that, you know, he has probably run for every office that you can possibly run for in the city. Whether it's, you know, county board, school board, city council, or mayor. And maybe there's something else I'm forgetting there, but he seems to have run for everything. How do you explain, if there is an explanation, how this man is able to muster 1,400 and some votes in Tuesday's election? Do you have any thoughts on that, Jim?
Well, there are a couple things. Once again, if you were mostly, you don't have children in schools, you were mostly interested in either judicial race or the council race, right? And you tended to be a relatively low information voter, and you're just looking at the candidates who are running for a school district, and you've seen Daggett's name before, but you really don't associate it with him as an individual or any issue position. Or if you were on the other side, let's say you were a conservative voter and you really felt that the school districts were frivolous, that there should be cutbacks, that school teachers' benefits ought to be dramatically reduced, that there ought to be more layoffs and we ought to go back to core basics in the schools, then other than Becker, who could you vote for?
I think it's none of the above.
There you go.
I really do. And I think there are characters like that in many local communities that are just basically none of the above. It's sort of a protest vote. They don't want to vote for regular candidates. Oh, well, he's
besides, he adds entertainment value to
he does.
One of the voters.
Yeah,
He does.
Yeah. And he only missed, you know, they threw him out of the Winnebago County race because he was one signature short. So he would have been on 2 races this year if he'd had 2 more signatures on his nomination papers.
Unreal. There were some county board races, but the other one that I think most people were able to vote in around these parts, the 2nd District Court of Appeals, District 2, Paul Riley and Lynn Vandewater, I think I have that, or Linda Vandewater. Any thoughts there? She spent a lot of money on her race.
But it was almost an invisible race.
Yeah.
I mean,
I didn't get anything in the mail until
I didn't know there was a
week or
race
two
until I
before.
went and saw the ballot, to be honest with you. I really did. I said, what is this? I didn't know there was
I knew, but I was paying absolutely no attention to it.
I knew nothing.
It was weird.
Yeah.
And then the other weird thing about it was, you know, they were from the Waukesha area, but then I also got 2 pieces of literature from judges running for circuit court in Waukesha County, and I thought, what a waste of dollars here from your campaign fund. I can't vote in this race.
You know, so did I. And I was guessing that these were really expensive races. They probably hired firms to do this work for them that really weren't very familiar with Wisconsin, and they got bad lists.
Yeah.
You know, that maybe they got lists from candidates who were running statewide for judge, and they just took the wrong names off the wrong. Because some local candidates were telling me they did the same thing.
It's almost as funny as the candidate in the 12th district for Winnebago County that had signs all over town.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you notice that?
Yeah, I did. And that
I didn't,
was way outside of the district.
Exactly.
So.
Yeah, they were just all over.
You know, campaigns in Wisconsin below the level of Senate, even some congressional races, are very amateurish. You know.
Well, all right. Well, very good. Well, that's going to do it for us. Thanks so much.
Oh, anytime.
Good. Thanks,
Next
Jim.
election.
Enjoyed it.
Next election.
Yeah.
We're going to take a short break. When we come back, we'll be joined by some folks talking about robotics, and we might even have a robot for you. We'll be right back.
Dear Mom and Dad, well, I finally have some time off, so I'm writing to tell you that I'm doing well. We have good days and bad days over here. We try to remember the good ones and get through the bad ones. Mostly we have each other, and that's what keeps us going. And Mom, since you asked, if anyone wants to help, just tell them to contact the USO. You can't believe how much they do for us. With love, your son, Michael.
Every year, the U.S. Department of the Treasury receives about 1.4 million reports of problems with paper checks. Checks can be lost, stolen, or delayed. If you still receive Social Security payments by paper check, Treasury wants you to know about a safer, more convenient way to get your money. The Direct Express Prepaid Debit MasterCard. The Direct Express card is new and is available to anyone receiving Social Security benefits, even if you don't have a bank account. Your monthly benefits will be automatically placed onto your card account each month on the day your money is due. While other debit cards cost money, it is possible to use the Direct Express card for free to make purchases, pay bills, and get cash at thousands of locations nationwide. There are no sign-up or monthly account fees. No more waiting for the mail or worrying about lost or stolen checks. Call 1-877-212-9991 or visit www.usdirectexpress.com.
We were in an emergency situation. We don't have extra. We have a little bit of water and a little bit of food. A meeting place, no.
No.
I don't think we have a first aid kit.
We have tuna fish, we have beans, we have canned tomatoes,
True.
you know.
That's true, but that's really not survival food. Tomato paste.
Yeah, well, yeah, right?
Already talking. Brenda Haines from Blue Door Consulting is to my left, and to her left is Tyler Olds. I really don't know anything about you, Tyler, other than you're a student and you're working on this robot along with the other folks from the Wave Robotics team, which is part of the first robotics program. So welcome to both of you. And why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your involvement in, in the robotics program?
I'm a little bit newer to Oshkosh area. Moved here a couple of years ago, actually from Appleton. And my involvement in the robotics team consists of, I was actually in this program myself in high school, and I graduated in 2004. When this program came into Oshkosh, when I heard about it, I was very enthusiastic to join back up in it. And my involvement has been consistent since I graduated in high school. I actually do the announcing and the emceeing in the competitions. So when the robot goes and competes at these stadiums, I'm actually the guy's voice you'll be hearing a lot of times during that. So it's my job to be energetic, to make sure all the kids get up and on their feet, dance, and have a great time.
He's the play-by-play announcer.
Yeah.
That's right, that's right.
And Tyler's being a bit modest, too, because he's been the vice president of the steering committee that's helped kind of pull this team together. So he's played a really active role in the day-to-day operations of the team as well this year. So.
Okay, great. Well, we do have the robot here, and I don't know, are we at a point where you want to get a shot of it right now, or should we wait on that for a little bit? We can do it now? Okay. All right. So tell us what we're looking at here, and then we'll talk about the program and so forth.
Sure. This robot is called Landshark Mark II. This year's competition itself is actually, it's a soccer game with robots where the robot itself has to be able to collect a soccer ball off the ground, and we have right here is this kicker mechanism where the kicker actually winches back and is able to kick the soccer ball amongst a playing field that's about 60 by 30 feet. And there's these goals that are in the corner of each goal that the robot has to try to score into. So like last year's competition, there was actually 6 robots in the field against each other. So it's a 3-on-3 competition, and each time the match lasts 2 minutes. The robot's goal is to kick soccer balls into these goals, and it can only control 1 soccer ball at a time.
Review the size of the playing ground again.
Sure, it's approximately a 60 by 30 foot playing field.
Okay. Good.
Okay. All right. Now, so this is not running tonight because of space constraints in here, but on a general basis, it's up and running and it's doing what it's supposed to be doing?
Yeah, actually, we just came back from our competition in Minnesota a couple days ago, and so yeah, it was running really beautifully then, and we went to the semifinals actually in that as well. So
wonderful. How many teams?
There were 63 teams, and actually across the street, because they have so many teams, they ran a second competition at the same time. They had another 63 in the Minneapolis area, and it was taking place at the University of Minnesota.
Now, was that a regional competition?
That was a regional. That was the second regional, actually, that the team participated in this year. We were taking part in the Wisconsin Regional in Milwaukee just a few weeks before the Minnesota Regional. So the students had the chance to take part in these 2 competitions and compete really against hundreds of teams and see all of the different strategies that teams employed to accomplish the goals of kicking these soccer balls, which was pretty
So we have an all-American robot here almost.
Absolutely. We like to think so.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, that's good.
Now, you'll go on to nationals at some point?
This year we did not fully qualify
Didn't
for
qualify,
that.
okay.
We did last year,
Okay.
and that was a great accomplishment that we have. However, we do have an off-season competition that will take place in Indianapolis that we will be participating in the summer.
Okay.
And the team earned 2 phenomenal awards this year, which people might be surprised to hear about these. The first award that we won at the Wisconsin Regional was an imagery award, or an image award. So part of, I think when people hear the robotics team, they think obviously about engineering and designing the robot itself, but there's a different part of the competition that deals with building the business plan for the team, attracting sponsors, how the team looks, how the image is built. And so the team earned the image award, which was fantastic. Wow. That took place in Wisconsin. And then in Minnesota, the team actually earned the Xerox Creativity Award, which is the second time the team has won that award. So that was a big honor as well, and that had to do with the drivetrain of the robot itself. So
marketing and mechanics, you won prizes on both of those.
Exactly.
And that's a really big part of the robotics program, is that it's not just about the robot, it's also about, you have the robot itself, you have a lot of engineering that goes into the robot, but a big part of it is the marketing, the media, the graphic arts part to it as well.
Okay.
How many kids are there in the program?
Well, it has ranged. Last year is our first year. We had students actually from all of the high schools. That's one of the benefits. Okay. And we've had between 30 and 50 students active at any given time in the program. So.
And how many businesses?
Oh, dozens of businesses have supported this, and really they range from a sponsor like Oshkosh Corporation, which has been incredibly involved in getting this program launched and off the ground, and Musa, which has contributed significantly this year, both in kind and then in other support, to smaller sponsors who have contributed either product or expertise, things like that.
Well, and Blue Door Consulting, your firm, with Heidi Strand, is involved in it. Now, you're not an engineering firm.
Right.
You don't have products per se that you can donate to the cause. What's your contribution to the program, Brenda?
We got involved because we understand from our business the importance of science and technology. We work with web programmers, we work with software development in some cases, and so we understand how important this is for the future. So that's why we got involved. But I will say that it certainly raises eyebrows, like, you're involved in a robotics team? I was with you when you tried to engineer something that didn't go well. So what's the relationship there? But so I've worked on the marketing side of things, working with the web team to build the team's website, and working on some of the public relations things, helping students who are interested in that side of it. So science, technology, engineering, and math, they're not limited just to what actually happens with the robot. There's a broader piece. Sure. And I think helping students see the career opportunities in that part has been especially interesting and rewarding.
What is that website address?
It is waverobotics.com.
Okay. And, we didn't obviously have that before tonight, so we don't have that on the screen, but I'll remind people throughout this segment and, check it out. What kinds of things can they see on the website?
We've got some photos uploaded from the actual build of the robot. You can check out the history. You can look at one of the other pieces that we talk about on the website that I think maybe people don't know about is the community service that the team undertakes. When the first program was designed, it wasn't just designed as a competition. It was really designed to build interest and excitement about science and technology. You've probably read about that and heard about that, but one of the ways that they look for teams to do that is to get involved in their communities and be out. So this team has, participated in helping get the food pantry ready for its opening, painting, scrubbing walls, that kind of thing. People have volunteered at EAA. We had a booth last summer to educate visitors to EAA about the robotics program and the importance of science and technology. There's some other things I know that the team has.
We're at Sawdust Days. We do demonstrations at the Boys and Girls Club. Also at the YMCA, we have a couple of those coming up soon as well too, to inspire not only high school students into engineering and science and technology, but there's also another program called First Lego League, which is meant for middle school and elementary school students, and we demonstrate our robot and what we can do, and also the First Lego League to try to expand that program in this area as well.
Okay. Well, I especially like the shark fin on there.
It's a new addition.
I was going to say, I don't recall seeing that on the robot last year.
No, it wasn't. It was a different design. Totally. Yeah.
It's very nice. I want to go back and digress a little bit for viewers who may not have seen last year's show. We actually had robotics folks on a couple of times last year, just when they were in the process of putting the robot together, and then after they actually had it together. And that's when the robot made its appearance as well, which was really cool.
It was the first TV appearance in Oshkosh was on this show.
Yes, that's right.
And we count that as our claim to fame. So, yeah. But that kind of media attention has actually helped, I think, really cement our involvement in FIRST, because that is such an important part of the program, is our work in spreading the word about the importance of science and technology. So thank you for helping us accomplish that.
It's our pleasure. It's our pleasure. But let's, for some folks who maybe didn't see the show last year, or either of them for that matter, let's talk about what FIRST Robotics is. FIRST, of course, is an acronym for something. What's it an acronym for?
For Inspiration and Recognition of Science and Technology.
Okay.
It's founded by inventor Dean Kamen. If you haven't heard of Dean, he's actually just recently on the Colbert Report a couple days ago he's invented something called the DECA arm, which is a prosthetic arm meant for Marines and other servicemen who have been in the who have been injured in combat and have lost limbs on themselves. He's also the inventor of the portable kidney dialysis machine, and also if you've ever seen the that Segway machine that see some people ride on, he also invented that as well too.
Wow,
so.
okay. And last year, you guys raised, I think it was, well, when you folks were on last year, not you folks in particular, but the group, at that point they had raised, I believe, $24,000, which included a $6,000 grant from NASA. Did you get any kind of grant money this year?
We did. We've been very fortunate. NASA has continued to support the program for a second year, so I believe we received an additional $6,000 grant this year to continue introducing the program in the community and getting kids involved. We've just received a grant from the Oshkosh Area Community Foundation to help with the purchase of equipment and training for the team, so we'll be looking at the best ways to use that. Other foundations have been supported. The Bemis Foundation, for example, has been very supportive, and then we've had a number of corporate sponsors who have contributed, and that's been critical. We raise about $30,000 to $35,000 each year to be able to buy the kit of parts from which we build the robot, to travel to competitions, to purchase the materials that we need to add to the robot beyond the kit of parts. So those types of expenses, the entry fees for the competitions themselves, so that's where that money goes to. Some of it comes from sponsorships like that. Others comes from the students raising money. So we do the brat fry thing. We've had adults, parents, and other volunteers serve at Waterfest. So opportunities that we can take advantage of, giving students the chance to raise some money. So. And
one of the things too is not just the cash money that we raise. We have, as Brenda was saying before, we have tens of thousands of in-kind donations that come in from example like Musa, who did most of the laser cutting on our robot. We have other companies like Stainless Piping Specialists who donate some of our plain fill to us. There's tons of in-kind donations that come in, and just from a personal thought, with all this talk about the economy and the way it is, it's really great to see this Oshkosh community come together and support something like this that's really following the STEM initiative that's been laid out.
And I think the companies, when we've had conversations with companies about why they are supportive of this, they get it too. They understand that it's really critical that we have a trained workforce of engineers who want to come back to Oshkosh. So we're hoping that these students have a great experience here, get to meet some great folks who work at some of these companies, and decide, you know what, after college, I'm going to come back. Because we think that that's going to be critical for our economic base in the future. The more entrepreneurs, the more science-driven folks who want to bring back ideas and create new products, the stronger our economy is going to be. So I think that's why people are interested in investing.
So Tyler, can I ask how old you are?
I'm 23, turning 24. So.
All right, so you've been out of high school for a while.
I have.
What is it like for you, as a person who's not too far out of high school, too many years out, but what's it been like for you working with some of these high school students?
Well, originally when I went to college, I was very interested in teaching in the first place. So for me, it's exactly what I kind of wanted to do. I really wanted to see all these high school students, learn and succeed. And I think the biggest key really is just seeing some of these students that come in, this is more of a technology education or technology and science type thing. And we do get quite a few students that are a bit reserved when they first come in. And it's really great to see is when we go to these competitions, when they see thousands of other students who are interested in the exact type of things that they are, it's really great to see them really just come out of their shells and start just being really excited. And from a personal standpoint, when I was in high school, I was very reserved myself. And now, I'm very confident with public speaking, and it's great to see some of our students do that as well, too. And, we do have student team captains who have to go out and talk to judges, who have to go out and do presentations, and it's really great to see them just really pop out of their shells.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know when Bryce was here last year, Bryce Nickelbein, is he still a student this year?
Yes.
Okay, and of course he was last year. That would stand to reason.
Sense, yeah.
And he was such an articulate young man, so articulate, as are you. But you've been out now for a few years, and you've been out in the workplace and so forth. And now, do you intend to make a career out of technology?
Actually, I'm going back to school for marketing personally.
Okay.
So. Kind of following Brenda's shoes a little bit.
You're
So
gonna join Brenda.
yeah, exactly.
We love it.
But that's the big thing about the programs that we do have a majority of our students do go into a science, engineering, technology field. However, we have quite a few as well that are looking at more of the graphic arts and the marketing field as well too. So it's very diverse.
And those of us who work in marketing see that it is really evolving to become a technology-driven field. With the analytics now that you can do online, everything can be measured. We really see it evolving, and so I think it's a natural fit. It really is. I think you touched on something though that's really important, which is students have the chance through this program not just to do CAD design and build something, but they also have the soft skills development of being interviewed by judges, of putting events together. I mean, we held a sponsor event earlier this year that the students planned entirely, and they had to come up with everything. And it's amazing the things that they take away from that. And I think it's, I can imagine a student who's been in this program sitting for a college interview feeling much more confident knowing that they had already gone through something like that before.
Well, it's just like anything. If you give someone the opportunity to do something, they'll take the bull by the horns, they'll figure out how to do it, but you have to give them that ability.
And sometimes that little boost. I've seen students come into this program thinking, okay, I will do this, but I don't want to expand beyond that. This is where I'm comfortable. And you give them an opportunity and you say, you know what, absolutely, I think you're capable of this. And suddenly they do exactly that. They dig in, they start figuring it out, and a whole new world opens up. They might be considering careers they never would have considered before because they didn't consider themselves a technology person.
Sure.
And that's I think that's the magic. It's a safe environment. It's a great environment where they have the chance to do it, but they also have mentors who want them to do it and who are encouraging them to do it and helping them to do it.
Well, and like with you, Tyler, you're going to go off into a marketing area, but with that, you'll be able to market things like this and programs like this, but you'll be able to market other things as well.
Well, and I think one of the great things about this program is that a lot of people just look at it, it's a robotics thing, and taking a step back from that, it's an engineering firm, and it's a mock engineering firm, and it requires all the different pieces of the puzzle to bring together with that. And combining marketing and technology, as Brenda was saying, that is the way of the future. It's the way things are changing, and having that leg up in the race or that step up really gives me and also the other people who are going into that a big advantage out here.
Well, and going back to what you were saying a moment ago, Brenda, about kids maybe not wanting to necessarily go out of their comfort zone. If you give them that initiative, as I was saying, and then they do that, then that builds more confidence, and then maybe they will step outside that comfort zone just a bit and gain a little bit more comfort. And it's just a whole comfort building thing, as well as learning some good skills.
And I think I've heard people speak before about I wouldn't have thought of becoming an engineer, they'll say, because I didn't know any engineers. And you think about careers that you know about often as a student. And so I think that this gives people the chance to get introduced to new things. And I think that's really important because you get a much broader perspective of what might be of interest to you and where your skills might be best applied.
Now we've been putting the name of the website up on the screen for you, but I have a question because I think some people get confused by this. It's the overall program is First Robotics,
correct? But
then your team is called Wave Robotics. What's the best way for people to really distinguish this?
Well, first is the Umbrella International Organization. Our team here in Oshkosh, that's based here in Oshkosh, is Wave Robotics. And Wave Robotics has actually now given birth to 6 Lego League teams, which are the teams for younger students, 8 to 14?
Yeah, it's 4th grade through 8th grade.
Thank you. And the idea behind the Lego League teams obviously is if we start students, get them interested in this earlier, they might stick with it. We see particularly among girls, they tend to drop out at that middle school level, drop out of math and science. And so the idea is get them involved now and then keep them in the program. And hopefully we're building a stronger team for the future as well. So these 6 teams, each of the public middle schools is home to one, and the YMCA is also home to one. But elementary schools students can also participate. You just need to align with one of the teams. Find one of the teams.
And right now we have 3 teams planned to expand for next year, and we're definitely looking for more.
And these are called Lego
League.
Lego League teams.
So as the name suggests, the students who participate in this build a robot, but it's made of Legos. And it's a tabletop competition.
We have friends whose son is in one of them.
Oh.
And I know what you mean. Yeah, it is Legos. But it's pretty
sophisticated
Lego building.
You still have to program it. You still have to put together mechanics. There's still gears and cogs going on. There's still a lot of things that go on that where you might say Lego, you think of it just a static display. Still a lot going on with it. It has optical sensors. It has to follow lines on the table. It's a lot of different great things you have to do with presenting. And another huge thing about First Lego League is, once again, I was talking about students coming out of their shell. 75% of the competition in Lego League is actually about the presentation aspect, not about how good your robot is. It's how good you can articulate how you're planning to solve that year's game challenge, how good your robot is. So it really encourages, once again, students to come out of their shell at a younger age.
Now, whether it's with the Lego League teams or the Wave Robotics teams, you've got kids of different levels and different age groups working together. Do you find that builds nice relationships between the kids, the older ones helping the younger ones, and you know, kind of a partnering that way?
I think that's absolutely true. I think at the start of a season, you can tell, you know, who the first years and the seniors are, and I think by the end of the season, some of those lines have been erased.
And we definitely encourage, you know, mentorship amongst the students as well too. You know, we do have student team leaders that, once again, we are building leaders, not just, you know, people who are good at science and technology, but we're building leaders in our society, and those people, you know, we do look to them to coach the younger students that are on the team so they can become leaders as well.
And I think the other piece that's a little bit unique perhaps for Oshkosh, the other lines that are erased, because this is a program of the Recreation Department, students from all of the high schools are able to participate. Last year we had a couple homeschool students, in fact.
Really?
A student from Winneconne at one point. So there's not it's a North versus West or it's a Lourdes thing. Students come together from different places to participate, and we think that that's another strength of the program.
No, the homeschoolers, how did they, I mean, there were some articles in the paper, and of course we did a couple shows on it, but by the time we did the shows, the program was pretty much up and running and the robot was pretty much built. So how did these homeschoolers find out about this?
I think it becomes a word of mouth piece, because
friends
parents are looking for opportunities maybe for their students, and I think the word spreads that this is coming. People may have been aware of another team in another community, and through those contacts, I think it becomes a word of mouth thing.
Okay.
I have a question on what happens to the machines.
Oh.
Are you thinking, you know, I'm thinking 20 years from now, you'll have 20 of these. Is there any sense that you want to have sort of a display or a museum thing that you can kind of show the history of this thing?
That is definitely a thought for the future. One of the things that we're going to try to do as well this year is that, you know, we have so many sponsors. We want to try to rotate that robot around our sponsors, and maybe we can give one of our sponsors a robot to display itself too.
Yeah, because these are 1-year shots and they start over.
So this game is totally different.
So this one now becomes an Edsel. I mean, this will not operate next year.
Right. This one could be scavenged for parts at some
point.
Could?
Really?
And that is what happened to last year's robot.
Oh, it did. So it doesn't exist.
In a skeleton form.
Right, not in its complete form.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you really can't preserve them if you're going to keep stealing parts every year.
There's a reduce, reuse, recycle kind of theme that goes on.
Okay, well, recycling is important.
Right.
Yeah.
Any parts from last year's robot that are part of this one?
Yeah, actually some of the, on here itself, some of the framing is, actually most of it is really off the electronics that are on the robot that are taken off from last year. Because when we get the kitted parts, you know, we do get motors, we do get, you know, a lot of things to it. All this stuff on it is custom itself, but a lot of the internal guts of the robot we can reuse from previous years.
Okay.
We should review now, and if I'm wrong on this, correct me. Don't you start on a specific time, and you have only so many days, and that's for all of the participants to do that?
That's right.
What is the time frame?
It's 6 weeks.
6 weeks, okay.
Exactly.
All right.
And there are things that go on off season.
Sure.
We consider the rest of the time off
Understand.
season. You know, we're working with students. We're doing some education and training. We work on the website throughout the course of the year,
Right.
but that's the main
Okay.
that's the main build
And
season.
during that time, we meet 6 days a week, so it's a
Okay.
very intense
It's pressure.
season. Yeah,
Yeah,
very
you
much
gotta-
so.
yeah.
And
It is pressure.
Yeah, and it's simulating, really what the real world is. You look at a great example would be Oshkosh Corp, where they going against that race against their competitors like BAE to build, the MATVs that they had.
That's right.
It's the same thing. We're going up against, in first now there's over 1,800 high schools that are involved in this, and you have to, in the same race, try to get something that's going to be, the top contender amongst all those other teams.
Yeah.
Do either of you think that that's the reason why the time frame is so relatively short? Is because in the real world you don't always have a great deal of time either?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. They're absolutely, I think, trying to simulate. You need to solve a problem in a limited amount of time. And that's why they have you ship the robot, so that even if the solutions come to you, you can't be working on it. You know, this is
it's done.
It's done. Yep. Until you get to the competition. And there are some teams who ship robots that don't actually work, and they show up with what they hope is the best solution at the competition.
And I think one of the cool things that our team did is, our Minnesota competition we just got back from was our second competition. So our robot was in pretty good shape by the time we got there. And what we actually did is we actually went out and helped other teams build their robots, because one of the big key terms that FIRST uses is this term called cooperation, which refers to a term that, in society, a lot of times your corporate enemies or your corporate opposition are companies you need to work with at the same time too. And so one of the big things that we went on is there's some robots that literally you look at the robot, it's a pile of wires, and we actually sent mentors and students to go help out with those other teams during the competition. So as Brenda's saying, some robots show up in a wooden box, and that's about it.
So cooperation is one of the key values, and gracious professionalism is the other that they want. So they want students to compete, certainly, but they definitely want them to take a positive professional attitude to the competition. And it's, I think that really frames the competition in a way that you're in the stands and teams are cheering for other teams. It's a
Too
really
bad more competitions doesn't have that philosophy.
You can tell that it was built in from the beginning.
Yeah, well, it's important.
You really can.
I mean, because there's so many that it's really divisive and ugly.
You will never hear a boo at a first competition. Yeah. It's really great to see.
And obviously the robots can't boo at each other either.
That hasn't been part of a competition yet.
Of course, they can't cheer for each other either.
No, that's true.
There's a downside to that.
Honk, honk.
Flash their lights. Their headlights or whatever. Because this tends to get started before folks like Dan and I hear about it and can help promote it for you all, what is the time frame when, if someone is at home and they want their child to get involved in this, when is the best time for them to get involved, and how would they go about making that contact?
Sure. We are listed in the rec department itself, so we will be in the fall rec department guide, which they can register through that. We generally open registration from, I believe we run middle of August through December 1st is our open registration time. With the key thing being December 1st, we really want to make sure by the time our build season comes around, or our main season, we want to give these students some training. So a lot goes on before the build season where we have to train students on how to do certain things. So anywhere from CAD to how to use any type of Photoshop program. There's a lot of things that go on before. But yeah, we run registration, I believe it's in the middle of August, but we will be in the fall rec department guide.
Okay. And is there a cost for kids to get involved?
There is a small cost, and it has varied, I think, a little bit.
Okay. Depending on need, probably?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Okay, very good. Well, that's going to do it for us. Thanks so much for coming by and for bringing the shark. I forgot its full name, but it's a shark.
Land shark.
The land shark. All right. Thanks much, and congratulations on your successes.
Yeah, absolutely. And please greet all of them and give them congratulations.
Thank you.
And that's going to do it for us. So we will send our greetings to you. Goodbye, and we'll see you next time. Until then, take good care. Keep your eye on us. We've got our eye on Oshkosh.